Hey everyone. So today we are speaking with Jennifer Boudrye, who's a former librarian turned parent coach. And if you have a child or a student who might be navigating the challenges of finding their identity at the moment, then this is the interview for you. So Jennifer is a parent of LGBTQ plus children, and she decided to go into parent coaching to help other parents who might be finding it challenging and wanting to support their child or their student for teachers in absolutely the best way that they can. So I am so excited for you to hear what Jennifer has to say. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in either the show notes of if you're watching this on YouTube or on the podcast. And yeah, like, subscribe, download, just enjoy the interview. I know you're gonna love it. All right. Hey, teachers and parents. So this interview is for you if you have a child, or maybe you know a child who is struggling with their identity and you aren't quite sure of how to react or what to say to make it a safe space for them. Maybe you teach a child who has come out to you and you want to know how to support them in the best way possible. Or maybe you're even considering leaving education at this point and would like to start your own business. So we're going to talk about those things today. Because in this episode, I'm so excited. We are talking to Jennifer Boudrye. And Jennifer is a parent coach who developed Parent with Care to help parents and carers learn about, connect with, and celebrate their LGBTQ plus children. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on our show today. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having me. I'm so excited for this.
Yay. So before we start, tell me and our listeners, of course, how did you get to where you are now?
It's a long story, so I'm going to try to keep it really, truly short. I've had a lot of, twists and turns throughout my career. But the overarching thing is I've always worked to connect people with information and resources that they need for their lives. So that showed up first as the radio show host and producer of a radio show called Discovering Kids. And then I created an internet directory back in 1997 at the beginning of the internet
Yep.
for families in my community in Montgomery County, Maryland. Then I transitioned and became a school librarian, and I did that for a good long time while my kids were in school. And then I also spent a little time as the district administrator for school library programs for DC, Washington, DC public schools. So then I came to a point where I was like, I'm tired of that thing. Education, and especially life as a school librarian, where you are forever and ever having to explain to people what it is you do. I just decided it was time for a shift. So looking back at all of the things that I had done, kids and parenting had always been at the center of that. I had also at the same time been doing a lot of advocacy work for the LGBTQ plus community. My son is bi, and I am the bonus mom to a trans man. So I went and became certified as a parent coach, and then realized that my niche really was about helping people to learn about and sort of dispel misunderstandings and fear around LGBTQ identities. Because once people understand, it's a lot easier to become an ally.
Right, absolutely. And so in starting, like in the beginning of starting the business, was it a bit, did you have some fears going on there and some challenges?
It's terrifying, right? That every I mean, I had the blessing of having been an entrepreneur like early on, right? And so I knew that it was possible. But leaving school with a set schedule and a salary and health
Yeah.
insurance and all of those things that we, come to depend on, and just the certainty of this is the thing I do, right? To becoming that person, like it's all me.
Yeah.
I have to do all the things, is terrifying, but also freeing in a very, very significant way. And so it just got to a point where I knew I needed to do this thing.
And
So yeah,
was
that's
it
the
mainly
way.
your self-talk that helped push you through that fear, or were there other challenges that came with beginning the business?
I mean, certainly, I will say I have a very, very supportive significant other who
Okay.
was encouraging, and that was super, super helpful. My kids are out of the house and grown and gone, and so I really had the opportunity and the space to just figure out what it is this thing was.
Yeah.
And then I reached out to folks, right? Getting the certification was super helpful to me. There's no official certification to be a coach, but for me, I needed that structure and that academic approach. And then I found coaches for business coaching and coaches for parent coaching. And so relying on others who had taken the path and been successful was really, really helpful.
I hear that so often about, you must, if you're going to go and do your own business, getting a coach, it's really just a game changer,
It
and I
is.
know a lot of teachers or anybody really who's coming out of their job to do something different. Sometimes there's like, oh, I don't know if I want to pay for a coach, but I mean, you have to think about it in terms of they are going to get you to the same destination in 3 months that you would have taken 3 years,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Right. And then
So,
having that path to follow. And if I could, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Jen
yeah.
McCullum with the Parent Coach Club, because she is the first coach that I started working with and is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And again, the community of working with other and connecting with other parent coaches is so empowering.
Where did you connect with them? Was that through the course that you were taking, or was it
No, it
more
was, thanks to a good Google search.
nice?
I mean, I truly, from the very beginning, I literally was sitting at my desk one day and I was like, all right, so like, I want to help parents learn how to parent their kids, right? I had been working in schools for so long, realizing that a lot of the challenges we deal with in the school building come from home, right? And nobody
Yeah.
teaches us how to parent, and we all make the mistakes that our parents made and new ones. So I literally Googled, is parent coaching a thing? And it is.
I love
So
that.
that's where I, again, found the certification and then just started finding, thanks to the algorithms, you start
Yeah,
to get uh, more people
yeah,
and more information coming at you.
that's great. I also hadn't thought about parent coaching either, so I think that's fantastic. I don't know if a lot of parents even know that that's a thing either, just like you're saying. What advice would you give, say, because we're talking about teachers a lot. So what advice would you give a teacher who wanted to start their own business?
Yeah. So being really, really intentional about the thing that you love to do, right? Not necessarily the thing you're good at. You might be amazing at writing lesson plans and writing curriculum, but if it doesn't like make you want to jump out of bed, don't try to
Mm,
go and do that thing for others because it's going to become exhausting. So really looking at what are the things that get you fired up that you could just no one could stop you from doing that thing versus the skill set that you have, right? So that's one step. The other step is being very, very realistic about, is there actually a need for this thing?
yeah.
And so am I going to be able to earn money? You got to have, there are bills to pay. And that piece is, I cannot underscore enough. It is going to take a lot longer than you think to make the money, right? You can sit there and make it work out on paper. Oh, it'll be fine. 6 months, I'll be doing this and this and this. It'll be great, especially if you are a solopreneur and you are having to do all the things,
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot longer. So make sure that you are going to be able to give yourself that runway and that span of time necessary to be able to make it work.
Yeah, yeah, excellent advice. Absolutely. I agree. As an entrepreneur, 100%. You have to make sure you have that kind of that net, that safety net there, that if something does not go according to plan, you're okay, you're going to
Because
be
it won't.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, which it won't.
Well,
Exactly. So earlier when we were before we started, you were telling me about the Queer Camp Fair. So can you explain that? What's that about?
yeah. So one of the things that as I started, again, helping people to find information and resources, right? And that's where the librarian brain comes from. And that's literally what I did in 1997. Is gathering information, curating information, and presenting it in a way so that it was easy for people to find. And through my coaching and a lot of the conversations with people, one thing that kept popping up was, how do I find a summer camp for my kid where they're going to be safe, where they're going to be affirmed, right? In the States, we are dealing with so much political horrificness for queer kids that it is, first of all, top of mind, is your child going to be safe? And then also, I don't want to have to explain it. right? I just want to know that this is a camp, this is a place where my kid is going to be safe and feel affirmed and seen. So I started talking to camps and talking to parents and saying, like, would it be helpful if there was a directory, one place for people to find these camps? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes. So here we go. So it's going to be launching very soon. I don't know when this is going to be, getting out into the world, but we're, in the beginning of February, beginning of February, almost the middle. And I'm going to be hopefully in the next week or two being able to launch it so that it will be a comprehensive directory of all LGBTQ plus affirming camps in North America to start, which I
Wow.
know you're not there, but
That's
I hope
okay.
it'll grow.
It'll grow, exactly. One day it'll come here to South Africa. Did you start off just approaching camps, or did you have parents telling you like, oh, okay, well, I know this camp for sure. They will definitely be, you need them on your list, or
Yeah.
how did it
So
kind of spiral?
I literally, so on my website, I had been listing, resources, right? Just a basic listing of some camps. And it was a lot of personal vetting. So it was
Okay.
going and checking out the camp, and seeing whether they were being upfront and clear about their mission to support kids. And then I just did more internet searching and,
Yeah.
scraping, and then reached out. So I had compiled a list of about 100 camps that I thought met the criteria, reached out to everyone and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this thing? Would you participate in this? And that's where I got the data to say, yes, absolutely. It was overwhelmingly, we would absolutely love to be part of this. So I was like, okay, we're going to do this thing. And, then I found an amazing uh, another business coach who
Yeah.
connected me with an amazing web designer who happens to be queer as well. So, talking with parents and other folks to ensure that we were approaching this in a way that was going to be, sensitive and attuned to the needs of queer families, queer parents, and people who want their kids to be allies.
Yeah, I like the idea of the fact that you did the research by asking people, right? Is there a need for this? I think sometimes entrepreneurs, and I know I've done this, right? You don't actually do that research. You kind of just be like, oh yeah, of course, like I would use it, so everyone will use it, right? So, and then it doesn't go according to plan. So actually going out and asking people, um, would this be a benefit to you, and finding out, because then you will get your yes, 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 yes. And you're like, okay, cool, there is a need for this. So I
Yeah,
think,
it's
yeah, smart.
having it's doing a proof of concept, right?
Yeah,
Being able to ensure
absolutely.
that you're going to
And
make
I was
good.
really interested in for your parent will care program. Like, what is the big picture? Because how long have you been running it now?
Parent with Care, I've been doing for a year and a half, almost
Okay.
2 years now.
So what is your big picture goal with this program?
Yeah. So Parent with Care, CARE stands for compassion, awareness, respect, and empathy. And for me, that really is a process that is allowing people to shift their mindsets, right? And it really is, even though I'm starting with parents of LGBTQ plus youth, because there's a lot of the awareness part that people need to understand. The approach, again, is very global, right? So compassion to me is triggering action. If we want to save, if we want to fix, and as parents, we do that. We're in that space all the time. Awareness brings clarity. Who is your child actually? Right? Not the person that you think that they are or that you hope that they are, but who is this human being that's in front of me? Respect then it fosters stability and gives kids those boundaries and gives, I often say parents' job is to set the boundaries, the child's job is to push against them. So
Yeah.
when you have conflict, it means everybody's doing a good job, right? And so you've got to work through that. But again, the approach is not to parent over your child, but parent with, right? To make sure that you're going on the same path. And then empathy ignites connection, right? So the
Mhm.
difference between compassion and empathy, really quickly, is again, compassion is that action piece. I want to do, I want to fix. Empathy is, I'm just going to sit with you, allow you to feel these things. And a lot of my approach, I recognize all of the mistakes that I made as a parent. My youngest is 27 now, so I've got 30 somethings and late 20s. I lived in that place of compassion all the time. I was always wanting to fix, wanting to give my perspective. What my kids needed most of the time was just me to be like, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Oof, that hurts, right? And giving them that space. So it's a learned thing and it's having to pay attention. So my goal is first to truly, truly, I want there to be safe and welcoming communities everywhere. And so working with people to help them, again, get rid of the misunderstandings and the fear of LGBTQ plus youth and adults, really truly is going to help to make all of us safer and feel more at peace. So I have been doing a lot of training and workshops with educators, with healthcare workers, with mental health providers, with organizations and within, community and county government. So
Wow.
when at the very top, when you were saying, this is for people who might know a kid, the reality is everyone does, right?
Yeah.
7% of the population is queer. So even if you don't know it or they don't know it yet, you know someone who is
Yeah.
queer.
And I think if like, maybe if you know someone, you can always also, if you are listening to this, podcast or watching this video, you can show the parents of that kid too. Like this could be something, you could look into, because it can only help. It can only make, the relationship stronger and make that child more comfortable in their skin, right?
Yep.
What should a parent or a teacher say when a child comes out to them? So it might be different
So
for the
there,
parent and the teacher, but
yeah, so there's kind of two different scripts that I recommend. For a parent, if your child comes to you and says, "Oh, I think this is my identity," or "This is who I am." First of all, believe them. Believe who
yeah.
they tell you that they are in this moment, because it can change. So the first thing you say is, "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for sharing this with me, because that lets me know that you trust me with this information." The second thing is, "I love you." Full stop. No rejoinder, no matter what, because if you do that no matter what part, that means that thing that they just shared with you, you have to get over it. Okay, so not the right messaging.
I see.
Thank you. I love you. Third thing, what do you need from me right now to feel supported? They might need you to help them tell other family members. They might need you to hold this information from others, which is hard, but it's their story. They might need resources and information and support groups, right? So letting the child lead you through this process is vital. For teachers, it's a little bit different. One, again, thank you for telling me, right? It is hard for kids to share this with adults sometimes.
Mhm.
We want to get to a world where it's not so much. The second thing is truly checking with the kid to find out who knows and who can't know. Right. And this is touchy because sometimes a kid is sharing this information with a teacher because they're not safe sharing it at home. And it's really important for the teacher to know, is this information your parents know? Can we have open conversation about it? Or are you sharing this with me because you don't have another space or a person to share it with? Right.
Right.
And that's going to help you determine what support you can provide for that kid. And then the third thing is, what do you need from me right now? How can I support you? Right. So a little bit different, but basically the same kinds of things.
That phrase, what do you need from me right now? How can I support you? That is actually excellent in a lot of, even in just if you're in a conflict with someone you love, right? Or not even a conflict, but you want to help, you want to fix, right? But
You want to be
actually,
compassionate.
yes, you want to be compassionate, right? But just saying, what do you need from me right now? It allows you to see what they actually want instead of you just going in with what you think they need, right?
Yep.
Them actually saying, okay, I really just need to sit on the couch and you can sit beside me. So It's
Yeah.
very powerful, that phrase within itself. I think everybody needs to know it. So yeah, thank you for that, definitely. In coaching in coaching parents, like what are some of the aha moments that parents get when you're coaching that maybe they weren't aware of, or they're like, oh my gosh, that's what I should try, I should do that, or something like that. Anything
Yeah.
like that?
The biggest thing is that realization that we all have intrinsic bias. Okay. We are born into a world that says boys are this, girls are this, right? A very binary, heteronormative world. So recognizing that, is a moment where you're like, oh, I learned this information. Right. Somebody told me that this was the way things are. And I'll give an example of how deeply this is embedded in all of us. As I shared, my bonus son is trans, and he's married to a cisgender woman, and they have a child. And when she was pregnant and got sonogram, that all important 20 something week sonogram, came home, he's like, it's a boy. And I'm like, is it? Because you, of all people, as a trans man, know that penis does not necessarily mean boy, right?
Mm,
But it is so, like, again, even someone who is trans is conditioned to think boy, girl, right? And in the vast majority of the time, that is correct, right? Around, again, 7%-ish, and 3% for trans. So it's not a bad thing that we have this in our minds, but recognizing that we have to step back and see that the child that we have is a unique, autonomous, individual human being, separate from everything that we hope and dream and believe about them, is
mm.
hard. It's really, really hard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had a friend a few years ago when I was living in the UK, and she had two daughters, and I remember one of them came out to her as being bisexual, and there were a lot of tears. And then later, when she was pretty convinced that her other daughter was also, you know, questioning her identity and where she was headed. And she opened up the door for conversation, but her daughter didn't really want to, she kind of shut it down. She didn't really want to talk about it. Should my friend just have kind of let it go, or should she have just, like, was there something she should have said, or what do you think?
I think that there are a couple things that might be going on simultaneously. One is the kid might not be ready to share. First of
Mm.
all, the kid may not be trans.
Yeah.
Okay. The kid might just, and we can talk about the difference between gender expression and gender identity. But so first of all, you're making an assumption that might be incorrect. Secondly, the child may have recognized that they are trans and may not be ready to share it yet, right? They're still trying to figure it out themselves internally. The
Right.
third thing is kids are watching how we respond and react all the time. So if I'm a child and I watch my parents have a really tough time with my sibling coming out, I've filed that information away. And being bisexual, and I'll share a story about that too, but being bisexual is like one level of understanding. The change in gender is a really dramatic shift. So if my parent freaked out about something that I think is pretty minor, what in the world are they going to do when I share this information? Right.
Right.
So in all cases, it is the child, you have to let the child lead, right? You have to demonstrate support and allyship openly, and let them see that and believe it and build that trust. And then when and if they're ready, they'll tell you. So my own personal story with this is I knew from very early on that my son was not straight. I had no question. And that was fine, right? So I figured he was gay, no worries. But I grew up in a time where it was either you were gay or straight, right?
Right.
It was pick a team. And I always communicated my support and allyship for the queer community, but I had a very limited understanding of sexual orientation and sexual identity. So he was gay and I was fine. Life was going on. And then when he was 19, he wrote an op-ed for his college newspaper in response to being called out, the F slur. And in that article, he came out as bisexual. And I was like, oh, wait, what is this? So I had to learn. And obviously, I've progressed and grown in my knowledge and understanding. And he's now 27. And a couple of months ago, he was sharing, we were talking about coming out stories, and he was sharing with me that growing up, hearing me talk about pick a team really caused him to hide his bisexual identity from himself and from me for a very long time. And that hurts. That just, oof, here I am doing this work, trying to help other parents and realizing, oh man, I blew it. And we've repaired and it's fine.
Yeah.
But it is just, you have to be aware of all of the messaging that you're giving all the time, because you never know.
Yep, I completely agree. When you think about what you say within your house, you have to remember that your kids are always filing it away, right? It's all just getting implanted in their subconscious, and
Yeah.
they can draw it out at any time, right? But it's always there. And I think how we speak in front of them is so important. And I hope that by listening to this, parents are going to say, okay, I do sometimes say things that maybe are inappropriate or are, whatever, they're, in some way should not be really said in the privacy of your own home, because your child is going to then adopt that belief or adopt that thought about something.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely, I do actually have two friends who are quite good at that, thankfully, but I think it's because she's in education, that she is aware of what she's saying, because as teachers, you hope that they are aware of what they're saying in front of kids, right? And that they don't say things in order to give the children they're teaching some kind of like negative bias of some sort.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
again, recognizing that we all have biases it is human nature. That's how our brains are designed. And just
yeah,
being able to challenge them and
yeah.
recognize, oh man, I was wrong.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. Recognizing that you're wrong and being like, okay, like, let's fix it. Let's move forward. Like, let's acknowledge and move on. And absolutely, let's not hide it. We mentioned it before, but what is the difference between gender expression and gender identity?
Yeah. So this is where I always ask people, so Marissa, are you left-handed or right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
How do you know?
Um, because all through school, I wrote with my right hand and my handwriting looked good. So I just kind of assumed that's what I was.
Yeah. So like if I give you scissors or if you pick something up, you just use your right hand, right?
Yeah.
Your right hand dominant. So if I asked you to use your left hand, you would feel weird. It would feel off,
Yes,
right?
it does.
So gender is that same thing. It's that intrinsic knowledge of I am male or female, right? And so we say, society, you hear people say gender is a construct, and it's not necessarily a construct, but it is an identity. So kids know their gender identity by age 3. They might, if depending on the messaging and the environment that they're living in, they may embrace that and be very affirming that, no, I'm actually not a girl, I'm a boy, right? And if parents, depending on how they respond, or they might shut that down and just go through their lives. I have a friend who came out as trans at age 55. She recognized that she really had been, right? My trans son recognized his identity at age 26. So even though they know, they can look back and be like, oh yeah, that was clear, right? So that's the
Yeah.
gender identity. That is that intrinsic internal feeling.
Okay.
Gender expression is how I show the world my gender. If I am dressing in a very feminine way or a very masculine way or somewhere in between, that's my expression. It's the gestures that you use, your hair, your everything that people can see. Gender people can't see. That's intrinsic.
Got
Gender
it.
identity, as extrinsic. Understanding also that all of those are on an array, or they're on a spectrum, right? So you have people who are identifying as both. They're in the middle. They're genderqueer. They're gender fluid, because some days they know that they're male, other days that they know that they're female, right? Or a combination, a non-binary. Gender expression, again, some days, I'm dressed not super feminine today, but other days I might want to dress up and do full makeup. Other days I'm in sweats and a cap because I'm just feeling very masculine that day, or empowered. So those two things are very separate. For most people, I am cisgender. My identity is, I was assigned female at birth based on my anatomy, and I know myself to be female. People who are trans, their gender identity is other than what they were assigned at birth. Okay. So the other thing to keep in mind is that gender identity and gender expression don't necessarily have to match, right? So if you see a man wearing a dress, he may not be trans. He just might feel really feminine that day and want to wear a dress.
Right. And what advice would you give parents who have a child where the gender is I guess it would be the gender identity, I suppose, right? Because it's the intrinsic. If it's changing like every day, what sort of might be going on there?
What is happening? One, again, depending on the age, right, of the child. If they're very young, and in all cases, I will say, believe who your child tells you that they are in this moment.
Okay.
Okay. So go with it. And recognizing that you can't force someone to be other than who they really are. You can force them to mask it,
Right.
but that person is still going to be who they are. And so if your son is wanting to play with dolls and wear dresses, that might be an indication that he's trans. Let them do that in a way that is safe. Then start to learn a whole lot so that you can support your child in the way that they need. When we look at teenagers, especially, everybody, you hear all the time, oh, it's a TikTok fad, it's social media. Everybody, they're just labeling all of the things. Well, first of all, labels help people feel safe, right?
True.
And so
Yeah.
if I am trying on different labels, I'm trying to find who I am and where I fit, right? I went through a period in high school where I was super punk. And all of my friends were super punk. And then I went through a period where I was super, super preppy, right? And so I was trying on different personalities and trying to find myself. And that wasn't as, intimidating. There was certainly times where my mother was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, same.
So we all go through that, right? In adolescence, again, the same thing. We have a lot more language around gender and sexual identity and orientation than we ever have. We have a lot more visibility. And so you have more kids that are like, I don't necessarily fit in this box that they told me I had to fit in. Let me figure out where I do fit. And again, you might have people who are fluid between different things, and that might be the change in the shift.
Right.
But you also may have people who are like I have another good friend who, as an adult, 30 something, recognized that they were not male and believed that they were gender fluid. And so one day male, one day female, and that went on for a period of years. She's now come to the realization she's female. Right. So she now identifies as a trans woman, but you have to go through that process. And it can be exhausting, but let's be frank, parenting is exhausting, right?
Yes.
That's in the job description.
It's always something new. And no child is the same as the other child.
Nope. And you're not the same parent
Yep,
to
that's
any other
true.
child, right? Even within your own family. Oh,
Yeah. With classrooms, with teachers, like what can teachers do in their classroom or in their school to help make it more comfortable for LGBTQ plus children?
yeah. So there's a lot that individual teachers can do. And I know that there are a lot of educators who are nervous and scared because of whatever is happening in their district or politically with their school board. But even in cases where there's a lot of pushback, and a lot of, transphobia and homophobia, there are things you can do. And a couple of the things is you can signal your support, right? And that can be seriously as simple as I have a rainbow watch band, and that I have had people comment on it. And it's a signal to the world that I might be somebody who is okay. I might be an ally, right? Um, it's the stories that you tell. It is if you're able to bring books in to your classroom that feature queer characters, awesome. If you hear kids talking about shows and books that feature queer kids, just paying attention to that and signaling that you are okay with that is important. The things that you say, you can work on using gender neutral language, right? It's so easy to be like, all right, let's sign up. Boys over here, girls over here. Try to take boy, girl out of as many places as you can, and use gender neutral language. Hey, friends, how's it going? I used to work in an all girls school, and it was very easy to say, okay, ladies, and then I realized I had several students who didn't identify as female. So I had to shift it to, friends, students, folks. And then the other thing is, again, to scan, being aware of who is in your classroom and how they're interacting with their peers. We can talk about, bullying, and there's generalized bullying, but then there's always very specific bullying around identities. So if you are scanning your classroom and you just have a sense that a child might be going through a shift in their identity or their orientation, pay very close attention to the way that their peers are interacting with them, because they may be causing more stress than, for the child who hasn't necessarily come out. And again, and be ready to communicate to that child that you are a safe space, if indeed you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know bullying is such a difficult one because kids will bully based on anything that if
Anything.
they don't like you, then they will find something.
Yep.
What are some of your strategies? And maybe this is as a parent or even as a parent coach, some things that you would tell a child or a teenager who's being bullied so that they can sort of protect themselves, because the fact is that there are bullies in life as adults. So it's not that you can say, okay, well, just punch him or something like that. You have to actually
Yeah.
develop strategies within yourself to protect yourself against the outside bullies, because they are everywhere.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really important is helping children to learn about their own nervous system and the way that they're responding to things, right? That fight or flight, helping them recognize when that's being triggered and what is triggering it. And then providing coping skills to deal with that. How do you get yourself back to regulation? Whether it's breathing exercises or movement or, whatever your child needs, helping ensure that they know that they are in control of themselves is a good first place to start. Believing that it's actually happening, right?
Right,
If a kid is coming to you, if it gets to the point where your child is telling you that this is happening, it's happening, and it's been happening for a long time.
right,
Continue to work with the schools, right? But understanding that teachers don't see everything, right? There is no way. Kids are amazingly good at being stealth
yeah,
with, the damage that they're causing. But utilize the system, right? So if you can't get support at the teacher level, then you work all the way up. Every school district has a bullying policy or an anti-bullying policy. Use it.
right.
Right. So there
Okay.
are triggers to go back and forth within the school. And then sometimes you have to really look at the reality that maybe your kid needs to be in a different setting. My
Okay.
own son is a vocalist. He's a classical vocalist,
Wow.
and was in a general public school that was very sports oriented. And both my girls had gone on there, and it was fine. He was really, really struggling. And so we moved him from that school to an arts high school where he found his
Okay.
people and
Yeah.
he flourished, right? And so making sure that your child has at least some place in their life where they have supportive people.
Okay, that's excellent advice. And yeah, that place to thrive, right? To where they love
Yeah.
being there and they can see that there are good people in the world. I think that's also key, is like, let's focus on the great people in your life, right? Instead
Yep.
of the people that are dealing with so much negativity within themselves that they have to actually push it out into the world, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate. But yeah.
And one thing I want to touch on quickly, if we just sort of going back to what teachers can do.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about, so we're talking about bullying among peers and understanding that when it comes to queer kids, often home is that place where they're not safe and where they're being bullied.
Right.
And I think statistically, only 40% of queer kids feel that they have a welcoming home environment. It's a pretty striking,
That
statistic.
is very
So
shocking. Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So having at least one adult in their life that is supportive can quite literally be life-saving. So one of the things that I like to ask teachers to do, and any adult to do, is if you know that a kid is trans specifically and is not safe at home with that information, or parents aren't willing to hear it, I do what I call proactive code switching, right? Which is saying to the kid, again, thank you for sharing this. And maybe one of the things they need is that safe space. So I hear you, I see you, I acknowledge your gender and your name, and I will always use that when it's you and I. But I also know, because you're telling me that it's not safe at home, it's your parents can't know this. So please know that when I'm talking to them about you and referring to you, I'm going to use the name and the pronoun that they know. But I want you to know I'm doing it intentionally. It's not because I don't believe you and I'm not affirming you. It's because I want to keep you safe.
Okay, that's excellent advice. And I think also shows the child by saying that so when they hear it, they know that you're still on their side, right?
Yep.
That you're not actually kind of, doing it behind their back sort of idea. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's really good. As we finish off, Jennifer, I just wanted to know, I know it's tough, but do you have any book recommendations or any favorite books? And it can be about the LGBTQ plus community, or it can be, just books that you've read that you're like, wow, this actually kind of changed my life right here.
It's so hard. Again, former
I know.
librarian. So there's a lot.
True story.
So I will say, like, it's interesting. I love books that shift my mind perspective, right? To help me um question the things that I know and believe.
Yeah,
And I'm just gonna go with fiction right now. So when I was a
cool.
kid, I think one of my favorite books was The Giver by Lois Lowry.
Oh yeah, I just read that a few years ago.
Love it. Loved it.
Yeah.
Like my kids had to read, my girls had to read it in school, and I made them read it before they were required to read it because I wanted them just enjoy it and not have to dissect it. But I felt that it was I don't know why, it just always stuck with me. And I just finished recently Jodi Picoult's Mad Honey,
Oh,
which is
okay.
actually there's a good theme in there around trans folks. And
Okay.
so I didn't know that I enjoy her books. So I didn't know that there was a trans thread through it. But it's a good one.
Great. Okay, well, I'll definitely put those in the show notes for sure. And where can our listeners go if they want to connect with you and learn more, or yeah, just like contact you in any way?
Yeah. So my main website is parentwithcare.com, all one word.
Cool.
And I'm on Instagram and Facebook but also at Parent with Care. And queercampfair.com will be launching soon. Fingers crossed.
Amazing. It
Get it
will,
all
don't
done.
worry. It's gonna happen. Yeah, we'll definitely we'll make a note that it's coming soon. We'll put that in the notes as well for sure. And
Awesome. Thank
just a
you.
few final thoughts, because I like to always talk a little bit about mindset, right? So what is one thing that you do, Jennifer, to keep you calm when things are getting a bit chaotic?
Whew. I breathe, first of all,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
Stop and ask myself, like, is this real? Or am I just responding in a way, right? Am I creating more drama in my head? And then literally sitting down and brain dump and prioritize and just be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all going to be okay.
Nice. Okay, that's good. I like, yeah, the brain dump is good. And I think that self-talk is especially powerful, right? Like it's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. And yeah, do I have evidence of this? Am I just sort of, convincing myself of something that's not actually here? And
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've really
Is
trained
it a
myself
fact?
with the self-talk. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Is it a fact or a feeling?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good one to ask. Is it a fact or a feeling? Yeah, I like that. How do you so in terms of mindset, how do you move yourself from a negative mindset if you're finding yourself in a negative space into a positive mindset?
Looking for evidence
Yeah.
to prove myself wrong. Right. And so I will say this is something I struggle with. It's very easy for me to believe that I am, the evil person in everyone's story and that I am, not able to do the things that I want to do. And so I have to stop and proactively look for and listen and remember evidence to the contrary. Right.
Yes.
And be like, no, actually,
Yes. And that
it
there are
can
actually
be
a
this
lot of people out there who need you and need your help.
way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, so that's,
And it sounds
yeah, I
corny, but
agree.
it's like reading the testimonials that clients have given me, it's like, oh man, yes. And remembering that feeling of, pride and accomplishment when I get off the phone with a client that I've helped them through something
Yes,
is "Oh, that's why I do this
exactly.
thing."
Good for you. Yeah, you got to focus. That's what I would focus on too. And lastly, what three things are you grateful for today?
Oh, I'm so grateful for so many things. I will say that I am truly grateful for my relationship with my significant other and my kids. We've all worked hard to have good relationships.
Yeah.
Um, I am absolutely grateful for the opportunity to do this work and hopefully, make a ripple of change in the world.
Yes.
Um, I'm grateful for this conversation.
Thank you. Me too. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you came on the show today. And I just really appreciate you for how you're helping young people, and their parents, and their teachers just navigate their way to finding an identity that they can feel comfortable in, because it is such a rocky path to tread, and I think having someone like you who can bring that awareness out to the world is really important. I think it's definitely already helped so many parents, and it's going to help even more. I can't wait for parents who who have a child, who's LGBTQ plus, listen to this and be like, okay, cool. Now I have a better idea of like where I can go and how I can really support my child, which is what I want. So thank you
Yeah,
so much. I really, yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you for everything you do.
thank you.